Beyond Stillness, Stories After Stroke is made possible by our guests and tax-deductible donations from friends and listeners like you. Join us in empowering stroke survivors with stories of wisdom, purpose, connection, and hope at www.beyondstillness.org.
This week on Beyond Stillness, Stories After Stroke, we spotlight Anna Kerry from Nottingham, England. She suffered a stroke at age 35. Since that time, Anna has devoted her life to serving other stroke survivors. She is the founder of the Stroke Wellbeing Space, an online resource and gathering platform for stroke survivors. Throughout her story, Anna describes specific practices that helped her trust and love her own body again. Thank you for joining us for part 1, Anna Kerry's story. Hello and welcome to Beyond Stillness. Stroke offers a powerful, life-changing shift in perspective. Each colorful memory creates a parable for life's greater teachings, a compass for journeys ahead, and inspired wisdom for unique growth. This radio show, Beyond Stillness, offers an hour of pause for storytelling and reflection. Ultimately, Beyond Stillness is a welcoming environment that reveres the moment beyond stroke's paralysis. Still moments unite humanity and divinity. I'm your host, Molly Bucola. Today's guest is Anna Kerry from Nottingham, England. She loves reading fantasy novels, gardening, morning exercise as a way to clear her mind, and in March of 2021, Anna suffered her stroke at age 35. Just months earlier, she completed her teacher training for yoga and has found ways to combine the experience of the stroke and yoga teacher training in order to support and empower stroke survivor. She founded the Stroke Wellbeing Space and serves as a stroke well-being coach. But before we begin, we take a moment of pause, calling to mind our own experience with stroke, focusing on our breath, the inhalations and the exhalations, as a way to give thanks to our bodies, minds, and spirit for helping us progress through the experience with stroke and recovery. So now let us pay special attention to the inhale and the exhale, elongating each, and maybe on the inhalation, thinking of the word grace, and exhaling with the word gratitude. Inhaling with the word strength, exhaling gratitude. Inhaling with patience, exhaling with gratitude. Inhaling with connection, exhaling with gratitude. And on our last, inhaling with gratitude and exhaling with gratitude. Today, I give special thanks for our guest, Anna Kerry. Anna, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here. And that was a lovely little breathwork practice there. I love that.
Wow, thank you. That's a big compliment coming from you who focuses on breath work.
Yeah, it's nice.
In your story, you said that you knew about strokes at the time and that people die from them, and that's all you knew about strokes.
Mm.
And you could tell your husband that you loved him and you did that intentionally. What else was going through your mind when you thought that you were going to die in that moment?
I was just really scared more than anything. Just, it was such a weird thing to be in, to kind of be thinking, to be knowing full well what's happening to you and knowing that people do die from these things and be a kind of a witness to that was just really scary. And it was just, in that moment, that was all I could think to do was to tell my husband that I loved him and also to weirdly say sorry. I think it was weird that I think it was just kind of like, I'm sorry, I don't want to leave you type thing. But that was all I could kind of think of to do. And I think it was just, really scary and really thinking that, oh, is this it? Is my life this going to be this short? Because even though I think when you're younger, you think, oh my gosh, like 35 is really old. And then when you get to 35, you're like, oh, this is really young still. And I'm like, I've got so much more to do. So just thinking, is this it? And then I think when you get to kind of after the event and you know that you're going to be okay, it's weird that you're at that age and you're contemplating your own mortality. That's a bit of a big thing to be doing at that age, I think.
Yeah. And now, do you still contemplate your mortality more so than you did before your stroke?
Yes, I think you do. I think probably a lot of people probably do think the same. I've had a few conversations with my brother who's had a brain tumor. He was 38, 37 or 38 when he had his brain tumor removed. And again, like when we've had conversations after I had my stroke, we're very on the same wavelength with, contemplating your mortality at this age. It's not something that you would kind of be expecting to do. But it's definitely something that does play on your mind a little bit more when you go through something like this, I think.
Yeah, your poor parents. Your brother had a brain tumor and you had your stroke. And before you told me that you had heart surgery. So at some point there was heart failure.
We went through the ringer with our family a little bit. So my brother it was him first, and then a few months later was my stroke, and then a year or so later was my heart surgery. So all good for the family.
Yeah. So how do you think that contemplating your own mortality has changed the way that you move throughout the world?
I think it makes you think about things in a different way. I think it makes you think about how you want to live your life and not necessarily what you want to be remembered for, but what you want to put out into the world. I think it makes you think more about those sort of things. And I think that the stuff that since my stroke that I've been doing has just made me extremely proud of myself. I think that okay, if something did happen to me tomorrow, then that's okay. I'm pleased with what I've done. Let's touch some wood to say nothing's nothing's going to happen. It just makes you think about things differently. It makes you see things differently. I think that it's a hard thing to go through this sort of stuff, but I think you can get some good out of it as well. And I know I definitely have.
Yeah, and it sounds like the good, quote unquote, good that you've gotten out of it, you've ended up sharing with other people. You created the stroke well-being space. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. like my website is a place where people can just come, get free resources. There's just a whole host of things on there that if you're looking for something that's maybe for some movement, to give you some more strength, some more mobility, then there's stuff on there for you. If you're looking for something to do with the psychological side effects to strokes, then there's something on there for you. So it's just a space where people can come, get some resources, get some ideas of what can help. And I think that creating a safe space for people, for stroke survivors, I have lots of stroke survivors reach out to me. And when I work with people, the one thing that they say is that it's always such a safe space. And I think that's just really important when you've been through a traumatic event, is really finding the safety for people. And I can be grounded and stable and secure so that then I can then help that person to feel like that as well. Kind of like a co-regulation that works two ways.
And that space is at www.strokewellbeingcoach.com, right? And you're a stroke wellbeing coach as well. Can you tell me a little bit about what that is?
My original thing was that I was obviously a yoga teacher, and that's been like the basis of my work and still is the basis of my work. And I got to a point where I was thinking, what else is it that I can offer for people? And so I did a wellbeing training, so wellbeing coach training at the beginning of last year. So yeah, I did that at the beginning of last year. And it just offered me a little bit more width and depth, I suppose, to my offerings as to what I could help people with. The well-being and the yoga then combines, because well-being is kind of everything. It's your whole body, isn't it? Your well-being. And it's not just the body, it's your mind, it's everything. Just bringing all of that together and looking at the whole person really helps, I think.
Yeah, you use the term the whole person in your story. Tell us a little bit more about what you mean by the whole person.
I think for me, it's that when you look at someone that's had a stroke, if you see someone that is struggling with movement, so mobility, if they've got some physical side effects from their stroke, I tend to look at things like, if you're feeling anxious, then your muscles are going to be tighter. And then we'll start to look at how we can move out of this anxiety? How can we sit with that for a little bit and see how we can shift it into something else? And does that help with your muscle tightness? Does this help? I had one person that was struggling with their walking, and what made it worse was when she was anxious about going out and walking outside. And I think that by offering these tools, like the breathing techniques and things like that, bring that down a level and help people through that, then it has a knock-on effect on the physical side of the body. So that's why it's like working with everything rather than just working on, well, I'm struggling to walk. How can I strengthen myself? Which is great to do those things as well, don't get me wrong. But it's just doing all of it. So it's bringing, yes, that strength stuff in, but then also looking over here at the other side of things. So the anxiety, other many, many feelings and emotions that go with having a stroke, bringing those all together.
In your story, you lead us through a little bit of a yoga exercise that you use for your trauma practitioners. And there's a big misconception of yoga and something that it's all physical exercise. And the exercises you describe are very much in the mind and require difficult internal work. But this is so accessible to all levels of ability, and it's so fitting for the stroke community. So can you describe how your yoga practice has changed since your stroke?
Yeah, so I think you're right. There is massive misconceptions with yoga. And I suppose one way to touch on that would be how my journey has been with my yoga. I first came to it through a stressful job. I did a very strong practice, lots of vinyasa flows, so moving with your breath and body, very strong. And that was always how I practiced. Went to a class once a week. And it wasn't until I started doing my yoga training that it started to shift and change slightly, and things started to slow down and settle a little bit. And it felt really nice to be a lot slower. I really loved that way of working. And then I had my stroke and things changed again. And I think this is a good thing about yoga, is that it adapts to every stage of life or to any life events. When I first had the stroke, it was very slow, even slower than what it was. It was very much floor-based. I was much just lying on my back a lot of the time. And I think that people have this idea of yoga where they think we need to be spending like an hour on our yoga mats for it to be a valid yoga practice. And that's just not the case. After my stroke, it was very much like I'd spend like 10, 20 minutes here or there on my mat. Sometimes I wouldn't even be on my mat. Sometimes it would just be a 5 minutes, actually hand on heart. How am I feeling? Let's just have a bit of a check-in. And I think people don't realize that even doing that for yourself, that's yoga as well. Doing all of these little things. And it's about those little things that you can put into your day that kind of makes the big difference anyway, isn't it? It's rather than doing an hour's practice and then you don't do anything else for another week or so, try and find 5 or 10 minutes in your day to just sit down with yourself. And that's what my practice was like. It was, even though I had more time because I was off work, it was still very much like trying to manage my fatigue levels and just trying to think about how I could fit it into my day. So it was very much a very slow practice, very gentle, and just really kind to myself as well about what I could and couldn't do at that point. More inward work rather than outward work.
Yeah, and there are so many studies about monastics throughout the world that train their mind through meditation or prayer, depending on the background of the monastery. And what that does for our mental and physical longevity and health. And so what you're asking us to do is to use these little yoga practices that are of the mind throughout our days, and gradually those will have a cumulative effect.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, definitely.
As you know, stroke survivors are just thrown into a new way of life and don't usually have the language to navigate this new territory. But when you experienced your stroke, you considered it a trauma. How did you know that your experience with stroke was, in fact, considered a trauma?
I think that's probably due to my yoga training. I knew that even though at that point I'd not been trained in trauma specifically with my yoga, I knew that there were different teachers that did specific trauma-informed yoga. And I knew that I suppose one definition that you could use of trauma is this one big event that happens. So I knew that what it was trauma because of the type of training that I've already done. But then actually, I suppose, funnily enough, when I did actually do my trauma training, someone offered me a different variation of the definition of trauma, which really surprised me, which was too much or too little of something for too long. You necessarily tend to think of trauma in that way. It could be even saying, if you've got a young child, too little love for too long is going to build up on that child, and that's going to be traumatic for them in the long run. So I think that I'd never really thought of trauma in that way. And obviously for me, my traumatic event, and for stroke survivors generally, their traumatic event is one big event. And that's how we kind of look at it. Whereas there is different variations of it. But I think it's just basically from the training that I'd done that I was just quite conscious of all of this side of things. Trauma isn't the actual event, it's how our body responds to the event and how our nervous system responds to it, which is also a good way of looking at it as well. I suppose when you think about it like that, then you start to think about resilience and how can we look at our nervous system, and being resilient in our nervous system is being able to move in and out of all the different states. So there's quite a lot of stuff in there to kind of unpack about trauma. But for me, I find it really interesting, really fascinating. So,
yeah, when you were panicking as you were having the stroke and you thought you were going to die, your husband told you to use your yoga breathing. How did he know you needed it in that moment?
I think he could sense and feel my panic. And again, I don't really want to say this is lucky, but my husband in the past, he suffered with panic attacks quite severely. So he knows about the breathing, and also knows how important my yoga stuff is to me as well, and knows that that's the breathing side of things is very important in yoga. So I think he was just thinking along the lines of, okay, she's really panicking, but I know that this will help her, and I know that she's not going to be able to think about it in this moment, so I'll give a reminder to her to do this. But it was such a gift. It really was. It just changed the experience. I was still scared, but it just allowed me to deal with it a bit better, because then you're just starting to calm yourself a little bit. Because I think when you're panicking, everything's tense and everything's just like, oh my God, I don't know what's going to happen. But as soon as you start to just settle and breathe in a better way, deepening those inhalations and lengthening the exhalations, it just allows everything to just calm a little bit down. And it's just, it was such a gift. Bless him.
Wow. And he knew to combine your passion for yoga, and he knew that that was your language in that moment. So what a gift. And now, Anna, you're giving that gift to other people.
Yeah, I think it feels like it's gone full circle.
Yeah, what a gift. At one point you said you were striving to trust your body again. Can you tell us more about your journey in striving to trust your body after your stroke?
So I think when you have a stroke, it just knocks your confidence massively. I always say I felt like the rug had just been pulled out from underneath me. I didn't know if the floor was stable. I didn't know anything. I think that it's such a hard thing to go through, where you're looking down at your arm and you're willing it to move and it doesn't. And it's just it's the strangest sensation at first. And then it's just like, can I ever trust my body again to do what I want it to do? And it's really, really, really difficult. I first came home from hospital. That first day home was just so scary. And I remember, like, I felt like I was kind of curled in on myself, because that's how I felt, so vulnerable and so scared, because you're outside of the bubble of the hospital as well. And then finding some ways to help me with, my yoga, finally reaching out to someone and saying, this is what's happened. Can you give me some pointers and some help? And receiving that help from a yoga teacher that I really trusted was just the first steps for me in being able to start to trust again. I didn't want to do a downward facing dog. I didn't want to do anything of that, because I didn't want to put my head upside down, because I was just so scared of all of the sensations in my body. Yeah, it's really, really difficult in the beginning. But I think just finding my yoga practice and finding that time and space to be able to be with myself again, and to be able to sit with some of the feelings and the emotions, and then finding my way back to myself, even though I think I'm forever changed as a person and I'm a different person to what I was, finding my way back to something that I can trust with my yoga practice and with all of the tools that I've used has just been an incredible journey that, not what I ever thought I'd be going on like this, but in some ways it's been good for me. It's made me be kinder to myself. Say thank you to my stroke for that. An incredible journey of I suppose, discovery, finding out what I can do, I suppose what I'm made of.
Yeah. Well, and a big part of that is individual, your own journey. But it sounds like you also were able to reach out to others and they accompanied you on that journey.
Yeah. And I think it's important to reach out to people. Sometimes it can feel like a really lonely place, especially as a young stroke survivor, because I think in the beginning you think you're the only one because there's not really much out there to say that young people, unless you're in these groups that I'm now in and in this circle, you kind of don't really know about it. So I think it's really important to reach out to people and talk to people, get the help that you need, because, you know, even though I was a yoga teacher, I knew that there was stuff that I didn't know, and there's still hundreds and hundreds of things that I don't know about. But reaching out and getting that help from someone that does know about trauma and things like that, it just really helped me to kind of kickstart my journey, really.
Yeah. Can you tell us about a few communities that have helped you along your way?
So first of all, the people that I reached out to were the people that I'd been on my yoga teacher training course with. So the ladies that were on that course with me. So they were the first people that I reached out to see if anyone knew of anyone that does trauma-informed yoga. I was very clear that I didn't want to learn anything, as in to teach it. I needed something for me personally to help me. And they directed me to the yoga teacher that I spoke to in the first instance. That he'd been done some training in trauma. He was my anatomy teacher on my yoga teacher training course. So he was the one that really kickstarted my journey back to yoga and to myself, to really look more inwards at the stuff I'm doing. The other communities that I spoke to were, again, in the UK, we have the Stroke Association. So they're a charity for stroke survivors. So I didn't really know of any other charities or anything. So they were the first people that kind of came to mind. So I phoned them and spoke to them. Obviously, they gave some advice, and then they also directed me to Different Strokes, which is the charity that I've done some work with as well since then. And they help specifically young people in working age. And they have an amazing Facebook group that is just a really nice space to be. Like, I know some Facebook groups can be a bit, sometimes with it. I think at the end of the day, I think Facebook groups are really good, but they can be, for stroke survivors, I think sometimes they're quite a dark place because people are just going through an awful lot. You know, it's bloody hard. But for the most part, they're really encouraging and really, really great. But my Different Strokes one is just a really nice group of people, and did a post when not long after I'd come home when I found them, and, posted what had happened to me. And I got so many responses, just so many lovely responses, just like, welcome to the group. We know you don't want to be here, but welcome anyway. It's just a really nice space to be. So I think offering these Facebook groups that we have, there's just so many great people in them that are just willing to offer their help, even if it's just an ear for someone to have a little moan or rant about something. It's nice that those sort of groups are there for people, because I think peer support is just massive. It's so important for stroke recovery, I think, because, like I say, you can feel like you're really alone in this, and you go to these groups and it's just like, someone that gets it. I'm not alone, because you've got your family, your friends, and however much they all mean well, they've not been through it. So they just can't understand some of the things that we go through, and I think that I've got, like, my husband, and he's seen it from the other side. It's difficult for both of us to see it from each other's sides, I suppose. But yeah, going into those sort of spaces is just a really nice place to be sometimes, where you just really, if you're really struggling, or if you've got any questions about anything, there's so many people that you can ask.
The one that you enjoy is Different Strokes, and you found that on Facebook.
Yeah, they're a good bunch.
It's interesting. I know a few people who now go to a different group each day, like 7 days a week, because so many groups are via Zoom now.
Yeah, there is so many. I think that's the thing about the pandemic, isn't it? I think that there's been some good things that have come out of it in the fact that there's lots of stuff out there on Zoom now where you can go to things where you wouldn't necessarily be able to go to, but because they're on Zoom, it just makes it really accessible. Yes, there's probably, time differences to contend with. I think it's nice that there's so many accessible groups for people to go to, and especially if you can't get out to a group as well because of your mobility or maybe your confidence. I think it's really nice to be able to still get that support. So yeah, lots of Zooms.
It sounds like much of what a yoga practice entails is our own journey, an individual journey. Can you tell me a little bit about how you empower stroke survivors on their individual journey?
Yeah, I think it's really important to be able to give that person that I'm working with, so give them back agency over their body. When, like I said earlier, you feel unsafe within your body and you don't trust yourself. So it's really important, when I work with people, that we start at the basis of awareness and bringing that back, and really offering that person, meeting that person where they're at, giving them back that control that when you go through a stroke and it's something that feels massively out of your control. And, recovery can sometimes feel a little bit out of your control because, you might not have the mobility that you want. You might not be able to advocate for yourself very well. There's a whole host of different things. But I think that with this practice and with the stuff that I do, it's about giving them back the agency, the control over their recovery. I can offer them all of these tools, but if they're not willing to do the work, and they've got to put the work in to get there. And I think that's where it's about you taking control of your recovery. And I think that by using these tools, you can work on your recovery in a really healthy and holistic way to get to where you want to be. But you've got to put in the work, and it is hard work and it is inner work. One of my students said to me once, she'd gone through one of my programs, she was just like, when you get to like the back end of the weeks, because it's a 6-week program, and she's like, from weeks 4, 5 and 6, and that's the hard work. I think we can all tend to work on the outside stuff, but I think it's a lot harder to work on the inner side of things. Because there's so many beliefs and habitual patterns that we've created that can make it really difficult. Having the trauma of a stroke on top of that can make it even more difficult. So it is hard work, but it's so worthwhile because it allows you to move forward, and so you're not stuck. And that's why I really love doing this, because it's just, I see how it's helped people, and how it's helped me as well.
Yeah. Can you tell us about a few of your participants and their journey and how they've progressed?
Yeah, so that obviously, like I said about that lady, I got a random email from her just saying how that she does this practice in the morning, and building it into her everyday life, and how much better it's making her feel. And I just think, I read something like that and I'm literally just like, oh, it makes my heart happy. I think when I get people that say to me, you're offering a really safe space, again, I'm just like, that's exactly what I'm hoping for. And that's exactly what I'd like, what I'd like to be offering people is a really safe space, and to get that feedback from people that it is a safe space for them to kind of explore their feelings, the emotions, anything else that's going on, then that's, really nice for me as well. So that, I have various different people that, have gone, that are all at different stages, and all looking for different things. I have people that might be coming from like movement, but then in the end, I've actually ended up with something else other than movement, and they've worked through other things as well. So I think some people come in expecting one thing but then leave with completely the opposite of what they were probably expecting. But that's the type of work that this is. You can I found yoga through movement in the first instance, and if someone wants to come to me for movement, then I'll meet them where they're at and we'll do some movement. If along the way things change and things start to shift because you're looking at things differently with your body and with your emotions and feelings, then we'll go in that direction. It's just meeting them where they're at is the most important thing, I think.
Yeah, it sounds like you give unique support too for whatever people are going through or whatever place they're at within their recovery. You offer a listening ear,
Yes.
a safe space, and specific tools to help them progress to wherever they want to go next or wherever they find themselves going.
Yeah.
Maybe it's different than they originally wanted.
I'm here to be of service. So, that's what I feel like I'm on this earth to do, be of service.
Yeah. And now that you've been contemplating your mortality since 2020, it's clear that your life has taken this direction of service. And it's a gift to all of us here on earth. It's a gift to your individual stroke community, your stroke survivors, and the community that you've created. So, Anna, it's a beautiful thing. And thank you for coming today to share. I love meeting with you too, Anna. I've loved the weeks together. And you're a beautiful writer. I looked through your writings on the website. It looks like you post weekly. And again, the website is www.thestrokewellbeingcoach.com. And stroke survivors can find resources, they can find community, and then a variety of services that you offer in order to support and engage individuals in their recovery.
Thank you.
So thank you, Anna. Thank you for your time.
It's been so lovely. Really nice to chat with you. It's been a real pleasure.
So again, let us settle into this space, into our bodies, maybe relaxing our shoulders down and back, grounding, feeling connected with the earth below, maybe rising, also connecting with the sky above. Becoming aware of the way that even the atoms move within our body, the life that breathes in and throughout. In this moment, we give thanks for our inhalations and exhalations, elongating each as we sit here today. And with the next inhale, open your eyes and exhale gratitude into this world. Anna, thank you so much. Thanks for joining and sharing your wisdom today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for devoting time and space to listen to Part 2, Anna Kerry's interview. For the full story, please listen to Part 1, Anna Kerry's story. Each colorful memory creates a parable for life's greater teachings, a compass for journeys ahead, and inspired wisdom for unique growth. In this episode of Beyond Stillness, guest Anna Kerry offered her story entitled Finding Safety Within My Body. She shared how yoga practice, communal support, and self-compassion helped her to learn to trust and love her own body again. If you enjoyed this moment of pause for storytelling and reflection, please like, share, or subscribe to the Beyond Stillness Stories After Stroke podcast. Again, thanks for listening. And remember, as part of the stroke community, you are more than supportive. You are inspirational.
If you are part of the stroke community and have a story you'd like to share on the show, please contact us. Email molly@beyondstillness.org.
Beyond Stillness, Stories After Stroke is made possible by our guests and tax-deductible donations from friends and listeners like you. Join us in empowering stroke survivors with stories of wisdom, purpose, connection, and hope at www.beyondstillness.org. Another way to support is to like, share, or subscribe to our weekly show. Again, thank you for devoting time and space for this week's episode of Beyond Stillness, Stories After Stroke.